To the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is Ryan Alexander of I Teach Credit.
How you
Welcome
doing?
to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Okay, so first question I have for you. How did you get started teaching credit? Why? Like, what's that story? Like, you don't grow up, there's not a major in college saying, hey, I want to teach credit, right?
No, it's kind of a funny story. The reason I got started with it was because I had crashed and burned twice in my life. And the first time I was young enough where it didn't really matter. I mean, I was 24. Obviously, you still need credit at 24. But the second time I had crashed and burned, I was 30. And like, I couldn't buy a house. I couldn't buy a car. I couldn't even get approved for a credit card for 5 years. And I was like, I got to figure this out. And it was complicated. I felt like banks were teaching it. I never learned it in school. My parents didn't teach me any of this stuff.
Right.
It was like this big mystery is how do you finally, build back or build credit, rebuild credit, whatever the case may be. And I was like, I got to figure this out. And then one night, of course, late night, just sitting scrolling through Facebook, I found a video and I was like, oh my gosh, there's an actual system. I invested money. I started learning about how the algorithms worked. And here I am 6 years later, helping people all across the country.
Great. Okay, so the first question I had, and I actually said this on the phone, and you corrected me pretty quick.
I do.
You slapped me down.
I do try to straighten it out.
So I said about credit repair. So, and you said, no, I teach credit. And when you said that, I loved it. So what is the difference between a credit repair company and what you do?
Sure. So what most people understand credit repair to be today, and for those of you who hear credit repair, they immediately start to twitch, but they think of disputing, deleting, sending letters. And I don't do any of that stuff. In fact, people are blown away. I've had credit repair companies, believe it or not, and I won't mention names, they've hired me to help them with their credit because they know how to send a letter. They know how to dispute stuff.
Right.
They don't know how to actually build a profile. Now, in the mortgage industry, in the real estate world, anywhere, building a credit profile is going to help you substantially better.
Right.
Most credit repair companies, they don't know how to do that. In fact, you say build a profile. What does that mean? They just know how to send letters. All I do is I build and structure and show people the fastest ways to not only build an 800 credit profile, but how to maintain it and then how to maximize it so that you're getting the best return on spend for everything you're buying.
Okay. And then I saw you online, big presence, online presence. And then I have some questions about that. But sure. How did that get started? How was it just somebody said, hey, you got to be online, this is how you reach people, or what did that look like?
Another awesomely fun story. So for a couple of years, I was doing Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube, I had a little traction, but not a whole lot. My stepdaughter one day said, you got to get on TikTok. And I'm like, kids are on TikTok. Right. I need people with credit cards. And she said, just do it. I made my first video with her. I had an introductory video. I did my first fun video with her that week. I picked up 2 new business owners. They both paid me to build their profile. And I was like, oh my gosh. From that day forward, it was like, I'm going to post stuff on TikTok. And it was actually funny, within a month's time, I gained so many followers so fast that my kids stopped helping me because they were jealous that I had a bigger profile. Like, we've been working on this for 2 years. Why do we not have that kind of profile? But I was solving a problem.
Right.
And at the end of the day, my results speak for themselves, okay? There's no smoke and mirrors. I don't make fake promises. I back up everything I say I'm going to do. As long as the people who are working with me do what I teach them and do what I tell them on a regular basis, it's a lesson that they'll learn for life that will help not only their family, but their kids' families.
Right. Okay. Now, and do you also travel and, do you do public speaking? What does that look like?
So we're getting into that. I'm afraid of public speaking to a certain extent. I can speak. You've seen me in a couple small offices. I did speak at a couple local high schools in front of 100 kids per class, which was pretty cool.
Right.
And I've had some business owners actually have me come into their companies, and the biggest one was around 50 employees. So my wife and I now are fortunately doing that. I mean, whether it's a local meetup, I've spoken in some local coffee shops, but anything and everything I can to just encourage people to learn a little, get a little result, and then that little result will lead to bigger results and a better future.
Okay, so why don't we jump into, what do you actually teach? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have an online course?
I do.
Okay, what does that look like?
So it's called 700 Credit Class, and that's exactly what it is. What I teach people is if you look at Credit Karma, there's 6 factors, but in reality, there's 5 factors that make up a FICO score. Payment history, do you pay your bills on time? Credit card use, how much credit limit do you have versus how much are you using? Age of credit history, how long have you had and reported history? total number of accounts, which would be, do you have an auto loan, personal loan, home loan, whatever, and credit cards. And then there's inquiries. How often are you actually applying for real credit? I teach people how to understand what those 5 factors are and the differences between a payment due date and a reporting date, and why a reporting date on credit cards is really one of the biggest hidden secrets that nobody knows about, nobody talks about, and most people don't even properly understand it.
Right.
For example, I'll ask
Go
you,
ahead, yeah.
credit card utilization. What do most people say it should be?
30%.
Right. Most people will tell you that. If I said, how much of your credit limit are you allowed to use? What would you say?
Well, you could use 100% of it.
There you go.
Right.
Many people are taught they can't use more than 30%, but they also have to report 30%. It's all wrong.
Right.
You can use your credit, for example, if you're brand new and you got a $500 credit card, you can max that thing out every week.
In a second.
You can do it 1 week at the grocery store if you've got 3 or 4 kids, but as long as you pay that credit card off to zero every single week, and you make sure on that reporting day, which 30-day window, the last day of the statement cycle is going to be a reporting date. If you know 3 days before that reporting date, you pay that card down to no more than 3%, most people's credit scores will shoot up anywhere between 30 to 100 points just from implementing that one tiny little tactic.
Right.
So I explained the difference with, reporting dates and stuff. I also explained to them how you build a diverse profile. You can add accounts that are going to build payment history without going and buying a car, without going and taking a $20,000 home equity loan or something. There's many ways you can boost your score for very, very little money out of pocket, and there's no debt. You're not going into debt. So all the Dave Ramsey fans out there, don't worry, don't panic. I'm not going to teach American distress. I'm going to teach people pay your bills wisely and responsibly and build a nice, thin, lean credit profile that is diverse in the profile so that banks and lenders look at you and say, wow, that's an attractive borrower.
Right, absolutely. And we basically say the same thing too, keep the utilization down as, low as possible, that kind of thing. So good. And then you also mentioned about, paying and not paying interest and what credit cards, to get and, how you make money off of credit cards potentially. Can you share some of that?
Absolutely. So one of the big things with people, or that people don't realize, is credit cards are the best financial tool that you can have on a daily basis, because you can use credit cards to build credit. You can also use credit cards to earn a return on spend. So if you think about gas, your groceries, Friday night fast food, flowers for your wife, if you could earn some percentage back for all of that, and then that percentage back, whether it's in the form of cash back, which the cash back you can move into a high yield savings account, or you could get points. The points rewards can be then transferred to travel partners, so that instead of getting 2% back or 4% back, you can transfer it and it becomes worth 8% back, because the transfer partners give that much more value. All of a sudden now your credit cards are paying you every year. I mean, I get $10.99 every year for my credit cards because I use my cards so wisely and I get the right value back. It's a beautiful thing.
Right. And then you mentioned making sure you pay, not to pay the interest, which that was kind of new. When I heard that, I said, you know what, I don't do that.
Well, most people don't realize that if, let's say, for example, if you spend $1,000 in the month of May, it's now, the middle part of May. If you spend $1,000 in the month of May, when your bill comes due, if you don't pay the full $1,000, you can pay $950 of the $1,000 credit card statement balance. That $50 will make you pay interest on the $1,000 you spent, not the $50 balance that's left over. And many people don't know that. I mean, I have 800 score borrowers that didn't know that.
Right.
That's one of the little traps. So when people think, oh, I have to carry a balance, I try to make sure that I'm very clear on what you actually have to do, when you actually have to do it, and why it's beneficial to you.
Right, and that's big, because a lot of people do think I have to carry a balance. A lot of people think that I need to spend the money on it and then send in $200 in to show I can make the payment, but there's a bunch of things that my Uncle Louie told me.
There's yahoos on TikTok or on YouTube saying, oh, if you pay your credit card twice a month, you'll report 2 payments per month. No, you won't. Right. I mean, sounds great. It will help your score, but it's not because there's 2 payments per month. So I try to get rid of the myths that go into the field and just straighten things out so that it's better for people in your position, because you're in a great position to educate. You're in a great position to show people and say, hey, just make this minor little tweak. It's a win for them, it's a win for you, and it's a win for society.
Okay, so if somebody joined your course, and then what are some of your clients? Or let me change that question to, what is your ideal client? Because you could have people that really have jacked up credit. They have collection accounts, they have all sorts of stuff. That's a longer haul.
Yeah.
But I would imagine, you mentioned business owners, they're coming to you because they just want to make sure they maximize their credit scores so they can get the best, interest rates on whatever commercial lines of credit or whatever they're doing. So what do your people look like, or is it all shapes and sizes?
It's really all shapes and sizes. I mean, I'm giving 18-year-old kids 700 credit scores within 30 days of turning 18, which parents are blown away for that. And it helps them because they go to college. They don't need a cosigner.
Right.
Or when they go to college, they're the only kid that's trying to rent a place where they actually have a credit score, and so the landlords love them. I also help a lot of real estate and mortgage people. They are trying to buy a house, and they don't know what to do or the fastest ways. I mean, obviously people know things like being an authorized user, and that can help. That's part of the problem, or that's part of the solution.
Right.
I help people to look at the entire landscape of their financial situation and say, how do we restructure it? Or how do we build it as fast as possible? So it could be first-time home buyers. I also had a business owner who he sold his company for $210 million, couldn't get approved for a mortgage, couldn't get approved for a credit card because he told some small credit cards to go away.
Right.
That gave him a mid 500 credit score, and he was pissed. He's like, I have $200 million in the bank, and I looked him right in the eye and I said, well, your $200 million can't save you now. The only thing that can is building a profile. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay cash.
Right.
And he was buying 2 projects. So I can help anybody. Ideally, I am not going to help the person who's got a bunch of collections, a bunch of repossessions, and they're looking for somebody to pull out a magic eraser. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to help that person. I will help them if they want to change their ways, but I'm not the guy that's going to pull out that magic eraser and say, you sit back and relax. I'm going to get rid of this. Kind of like going back to credit repair companies, they give you the fish.
Right.
I'm going to sell you a fishing rod. I'm going to show you how it works, and then I'm going to teach you how to fish for yourself and your family for the rest of your life. That's the biggest difference.
Right. No, without question. Okay, so what other little tidbit or what other thing would you say if somebody wanted to do one thing other than join your course?
Yep.
Because that's the that's the one thing they should do, right? But but what's that one thing they could do that would have the biggest impact with the least amount of money?
I'm probably going to have shirts made up, and it's going to say PTZW. Pay to zero weekly. If people could simply get into the habit of realizing the credit card should be a 7-day loan, that is it. If you cannot pay that credit card off to zero at the end of the week, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
I don't care. And people say, oh, well, I only get paid twice a week. So you're doing it wrong. Because if you had cash in your pocket, that's all you could spend, you couldn't spend for 2 weeks and say, oh, sorry, I can't. You wouldn't be able to buy. So it doesn't matter whether you get paid once a month, twice a month, or 4 times a month. At the end of every week, you should be able to zero out your credit cards. And if you can't, you're now leaning on your credit cards as an extension of your income. That's where people get into trouble.
Right. Okay.
So that's the one thing I would tell people: learn to manage credit cards wisely and responsibly, and understand how they actually work.
And then also, just on your site, you want to teach people who are serious. So they have to be disciplined. They want to do this and have to do it, just to, better their lives, better everything. Because obviously, if you have stronger credit scores, everything's going to be cheaper. Your car insurance is going to be cheaper. Your mortgage payments are going to be cheaper. Your credit cards are going to be cheaper. Everything's going to be lower. So being disciplined and really following instruction and really wanting to do it, I mean, that's one of the things I saw on your site, right?
100%. I mean, it's about saying to people, like, listen, nobody's going to go out and borrow money for you. Nobody's going to go to work for you, and nobody's going to pay your bills for you. You got to do it yourself. But if you can break it down into a 7-day cycle, it becomes so much simpler and easier. Like, people are talking about, paying credit cards. I'm like, you can pay your credit card. I did it live on one of my videos the other day, 44 seconds. I logged in, looked at my account, paid the balance, hit submit, done. 44 seconds, just like that, it's paid. If you just get into that habit, what happens is your debt never runs away from you.
Right.
And so if you try to eat a whole pizza in one shot, that's really hard to do. Just eat it slice by slice. You'll be okay. It's the same thing with credit. Once you just manage your bills on a micro level,
right,
it becomes easier for people. I always say, is it easier for you to cut $1,000 check at the end of the month? Or is it easier to break it into $250 a week payment?
Right.
It's so much simpler for people. That's why car dealerships now, to sell cars, they're selling the weekly payment, not the monthly payment. Because they want people to get sucked into doing it.
Right.
But they also know that there's a higher probability that they can budget for a week and not a month.
Right.
And that becomes easier.
Right. Okay. So that was some really good stuff. I know you have a ton of stuff online, and you have your course, and you do one-on-one training as well.
I do. So for people who want accelerated growth, for people, again, a lot of times it's business owners where they will hire and they'll say, hey, can you build me a credit profile so that I can get business credit cards, I can get business lines of credit, I can get a truck for my company, or that I can have lines so that I can have, $50,000, $100,000 worth of supplies or materials, whatever. Those people I'm happy to help. I'm also happy to help. There's some people that are like, I need to buy a house and I need to do it in 6 months or less. Can you do it?
Right.
And the answer is sometimes. My fastest record is 102 points in 9 days. Purely a utilization problem.
Right.
Guy made a lot of money. He just didn't know how to manage it. And I said, you're going to do this on this date, which was literally today. If you do this today, within 10 days, you're going to see a result that's going to blow your mind. 9 days later, he called me and he says, I can't believe it, 102 points.
Wow. Right.
Just because I was able to look at the algorithm in his profile and say, okay, I know what he has to do. No smoke and mirrors.
Right.
No letter sent, no disputing, no deleting, just management.
Right. Okay. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
There's a couple different ways. I would just say go to iteachcredit.com. That's what I use for most things. iteachcredit.com is the best. Or send me an email, info@iteachcredit.com. You can send me an email and just let me know what your situation is. And I'll tell you. If it's a quick fix, I'll tell you. If it's not going to be a quick fix, I'll tell you that as well. Yeah. I won't lie to you because at the end of the day, my name and reputation mean everything to me.
Right. Okay. Well, that was some really good stuff. And yeah, 100% different than a credit repair company because you're teaching it and you're actually showing them, what you have to do. That's really good stuff.
And I want to add one thing. Please, to anybody and everybody's listening, if you do get into a situation where you owe money, do not go to a debt consolidation company. These debt relief companies, what they do is they essentially, most of them, and if you go to one, if they tell you to stop paying your credit cards, stop. I'm seeing this habit way more frequently now where companies are telling them stop paying your debt. We're going to negotiate for you. And they have 5, 6, 7 credit cards that are maxed out. Now you have 6, 7 credit cards that are all reporting no payments.
Right.
Now you know what a missed payment does.
Yeah.
One missed payment. Imagine 6 credit cards with having no missed payments for 6 months. And then they settle that debt. That's a problem that it makes it 1,000 times harder for me to try to help you. Close the account. Tell the creditor, I need to close this account. I don't want to have missed payments reporting. Here's my situation. Let them talk to you about that.
Right.
And figure that out. If you just stop paying and say, I'm throwing in the towel, your problem's going to get 10 times worse every single month.
Okay. Good stuff. Okay. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
You got it.
Okay. I teach credit, not a credit repair. I teach credit.
That's right, guys. Have yourself an awesome day. And just remember, the more you learn, the better off things will be for you. So make sure you implement it.
There you go. That's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez. Be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe below. I have great guests always coming on. Teaching and telling of their wisdom and their life experiences. Super important. Also, leave a comment. Tell me some show topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Be sure to watch the show.